Okay.
Yeah, we'll start.
So, good evening, everyone. Good evening, sir. Today we'll start our session. Today we have with us, like my senior, and for all of you, Dr. Sandesh Biradar, who completed his BNYS from SVASA and PGCSU from Shanghai University, and he's currently working as a consultant and acupuncturist at Chansef Rheumatology and Immunology Center, founder and director K1 Healthy Bangalore. So we welcome you, sir, on this platform on the
Thanks,
topic
Mohammed.
of management, and
Thank
we'll
you.
hope we'll learn many things from you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And welcome to all those who are joined here. So today's topic will be speaking on musculoskeletal disorders. Okay. So there are so many different types of arthritis you see. People coming with joint pains, limitation of movements of joints. So it's very important that you recognize what kind of disease it is. Okay. And also, so most of the times what happens, we don't diagnose the illness properly. Sometimes people come with already diagnosed condition, then it's okay. But when people come to you for the first time with so many complaints, we don't actually diagnose them properly because we are not taught so well in our colleges, in our universities. Um, so this is my personal experience also. When I come out of the college, I face so many challenges, in treating patients and all. So after I joined this super specialty hospital, I got to know things, and uh, now I'm so I'm well knowledge to teach others and help them a bit in their journey in the future. Okay, excuse me. So I'll be sharing a few slides and I'll also be explaining along with. Let's start with the presentation. Okay. Just give me a minute. So people are joining in. Let's unmute them. So Bhavit,
Yes, Priya.
just I'm having some problem in sharing the PPT.
And I am doing your co-host, so you can share the PPT.
Share the PPT with you.
No, you also can share screen through your laptop or any source of mode.
I'm not getting that share screen with me.
Because I have done like making a co-host.
Uh-huh. What do we do now?
I'll make you the host, but in
Yeah, yeah,
that like it came.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay now?
No, it's not visible.
Okay.
everyone can wait for 5 minutes. Sorry for the inconveniences. We'll continue. Am I audible, sir? Shall we start? Your voice is not unmute. Is it? It's unmute.
Hello. 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 Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm audible?
Yeah, it's
Yes.
clear. So we'll start.
Yeah. So the what happened to the PPT thing?
It's with me, so I can share the PPTs.
Okay. We'll start it now.
Is
Yes.
it visible
Yeah.
to all?
Start the PPT.
Started. Okay.
Okay. Started now. Okay. So as I said, osteoarthritis. The age of onset in osteoarthritis is usually more than 50 years. So old females especially, they'll complain of knee pain, hand pain. Uh, so the age itself should give you an idea. The onset of age should give you an idea what kind of arthritis it is. So more than 50 years, knee pain, asymmetrical, hands pain, especially of the DIP joint, okay, not the PIP joint. DIP is the distal interphalangeal joint, involvement of distal interphalangeal joints. And the other features of knee pain will be mostly pain will be felt while exertion, while walking, climbing upstairs. So these kind of things. So also there will be more pain while getting up from sitting position. You'll see a lot of females, they'll be obese most of the time. When they sit on the floor for a long time, they'll say, I'm difficult to get up. I feel pain when I get up from sitting position. So that's also one of the hallmark features of osteoarthritis. So there are so many other causes for the knee pain. Like, when people complain of knee pain while standing from sitting position, there's so many other causes for it. One of the major causes these days is myositis, the two drug-induced myositis. So, the statin drugs, which are used for lowering the cholesterol level. See, one of the side effects of this drug is myositis. So there will be a lot of muscle injury. The muscle will go for a atrophy. There will be weakness. If you see their muscles, hamstring, calf muscles, the bulk will be lost. So there will be loss of movement also. So you have to differentiate these things. You have to also look at their drug history when you're seeing the patient. And hip pain. Hip pain is not so common before 60 years. Also, only 5% of population have hip OA. A lot of times hip OA is confused with the radiating pain from the low back. You have to clearly examine the patient when they complain of hip pain. And also, most of us think obesity is a major cause of hip pain too. It is true for knee pain, but not so true for the case of hip pain. Hip pain is not, obesity is not such a risk factor for hip pain. But farming is, if you see farmers complaining of hip pain, age is 50, 60 years, then it's mostly the hip osteoarthritis. Otherwise, hip pain can be a referred pain from your low back, from your lumbar spine. So you have to examine the patient clearly. So how would the X-ray look? Next slide. Bhavit?
Yeah, I'm doing.
Yeah. If you see the X-ray of a normal hand versus osteoarthritis hand, there is a loss of joint space. There's a degeneration, and the nodes you can see, Herberden nodes we call them, the osteophyte complex. You see in the knee joint. So this is a normal knee joint in the left side. There's a clear space you see between these two bones. Whereas in ONE, you see that synovial fluid has been exhausted. So there is no space, joint space here. Okay. Next slide. So how do we manage this thing? ONE can be greatly benefited. ONE patients will be greatly benefited with the weight loss diet itself. So obesity is a major cause of knee OA, and as we know, regular yoga asana practice can help you bring down the weight, and also can alleviate the pain and improve the mobility of the joints. You have to prescribe them calcium-rich diet, or if their diet pattern is not so good, you can also tell them to take supplements on a daily basis. And a lot of sun exposure or vitamin D supplement. So if you want to give a vitamin D supplement, it is the recommended dosage is 60,000 units per month, one tablet per month. And there is another drug called glucosamine. It's given 750 mg twice a day. BD means two times a day. Some experts say this is just a placebo and things, but I've seen some patients, improving with knee osteoarthritis with this drug, along with other exercises and acupuncture and these. So acupuncture can greatly benefit in grade 1, grade 2 OA, to some extent grade 3, grade 4 OA, but mainstay of the treatment should be weight loss, calcium rich diet, and regular yoga and relaxation techniques, and etc. Next slide. Okay. Next one is rheumatoid arthritis. As opposed to osteoarthritis, it is seen in young population. The two more in females than males, and also, yeah, the age of onset will be around 20 to 50 years. So, what is the reason you think it should be like this? Because it is a pro-estrogen driven disease. RA is a pro-estrogen driven disease. So, estrogen is you can find estrogen only in the reproductive age group of a female, that is 20 to 50 years. RA can happen after 50 years also. We call it late onset RA. In that case, the presentation will be a little different. Say in early onset RA, like in 20 to 50 years, the pattern of involvement will be multiple joints, especially the small joints, starting from the PIP joints. So in osteoarthritis, it will be the DIP joints. In RA, it will be the PIP joints. Okay. It is in the age group 20 to 50 years, but in late onset RA, in more than 50 years, it will be the large joints like wrist, elbow, shoulder, hip. So these joints will be affected. And the another hallmark sign of RA is morning stiffness. These patients, when they wake up in the morning, they'll not be able to fold their fingers to the full extent. There'll be a lot of stiffness. Later, they'll go for a restriction of movement, deformities. So the most common deformity you see is a swan neck deformity. You'll find those patients like this. And in lab investigations, what would you find is raised inflammatory markers, because RA is an inflammatory disease. There's a lot of inflammation, unlike osteoarthritis. In osteoarthritis, though there is itis in the last, there is no real inflammation. So sometimes osteoarthritis is a misnomer for that condition. Yeah, so in RA, there'll be lots of inflammation. So ESR CRP will be high, and rheumatoid factor will be positive, anti-CCP will be positive. And there is another condition called as seronegative RA. In the lab investigations, you won't find much. The RA factor will be negative, anti-CCP will be negative, but still the other clinical features like pain, stiffness will be very similar to RA. So we call them seronegative RA, and the management will also be the same as the seropositive RA. Next slide. Yeah. If you see the X-ray of RA patients, on the left-hand side, you can see a normal X-ray. There is clear joint space. There is no erosion. There is no inflammation. There is no edema in the soft tissue. But if you see in RA, there is a lot of erosion. If you see a normal X-ray and RA X-ray, an advanced RA, there will be erosion in the joint space. If you see two joints, in between these two DIP joints, there's not much joint space left. There's a lot of erosion, and also the deformity you can see. And they are more prone to bone displacement and fractures, these RA patients. So what happens in a normal person, even if he goes and has a trauma to his hand, his bone may not get displaced. He might suffer from acute sprain or something, ligament tear or something, but very less likely that a normal person will go for a bone displacement. So in RA, it's a risk factor for bone displacement fractures. Next slide. So how do you manage RA? Though it looks, the management of pain looks very simple, the disease is not that simple. Especially when the anti-CCP is positive and rheumatoid factor is very high, ESR CRP is very high. They can go for erosion very quickly. They can go for a deformity very quickly. And And sometimes these deformities are irreversible. You cannot reverse the deformities at times. So what can we do from our side? Yoga therapy, it's not just the yoga asanas which we teach. Of course, yoga asanas should be, the focus should be on improving the mobility. To some extent, it will relieve the pain, but there should be an integrated approach to yoga. There are a lot of studies which say yoga can reduce inflammation. There are a lot of studies which say vagus stimulation of vagus nerve has a lot of anti-inflammatory effects. Especially there are some studies done on Raj Yoga which say the autonomic nervous system shifts to the vagal side, the parasympathetic side. When you can continuously practice yoga, especially Raj Yoga meditation. So more focus should be on the integrated approach. And acupuncture, there are a lot of studies which say acupuncture has a lot of benefits. And personally, if you ask me, I will also recommend acupuncture for RA patients very much because I've seen a lot of good results. So the main thing is you have to stimulate stomach 36 point bilateral. Even the patient may not have a knee pain, still you have to needle the stomach 36 point with electrical stimulation. So there are some studies which say stimulating this point can bring in a lot of TNF alpha down, tuber necrosis factor down. So TNF is a pro-inflammatory cytokine. There are other cytokines like interleukins and this, but TNF alpha is a major player in the inflammation. So if you can reduce TNF alpha through acupuncture, it's a great thing because a lot of drugs have failed in this aspect. There are a lot of drugs which have been discovered, which have the clinical trials, they have failed to bring down the inflammation. So acupuncture has good effects in alleviating the pain plus inflammation. So the thing is, Li4 is a major point, and other points we can decide on, based on the involvement, the pattern of involvement, joints involved. If it's a wrist joint, you can use some triple warmer points, Li4 and pericardium points to improve the mobility and reduce the pain. And coming to that, the diet should be such that it will, give some anti-inflammatory effect. I'll talk about diet later. Just keep this in mind. And calcium-rich diet or supplements, sun exposure, vitamin D supplements. If there is an OA knee, there can be a secondary osteoarthritis knee because of RA. What I talked about earlier is primary OA. There is no inflammation, there is no RA, but bone has gone for a degeneration. That is primary OA. In RA, there can be a secondary OA of either hands or knee, depending on the involvement. So there also you can manage it as a OA knee treatment. So what is the modern doctor scheme? What is the modern medicine approach in this? You should know this. This is very important because you may see a patient coming to you, RA patient, clinically RA patient, but they may not be on these drugs. They might be managed from GPs, just taking analgesics on a regular basis, but that's not the way to manage because RA is, as I said, highly erosive disease, and the damage can be irreversible at most of the times. So it's very important they're on the correct line of treatment along with your naturopathy and yoga modalities. So what is the gold standard of treatment? Is DMARD, disease modifying anti-rheumatic drugs, they call it. So methotrexate, the starting dose will be 10 mg per week. So the peak dose you can go is 25 mg per week, but you have to regularly monitor your liver function, serum creatinine when you're taking this drug because it has a effect on your liver function. And hydroxychloroquine sulfate. This drug has become very famous these days because it is being managed, it is being used in management of COVID-19 also. So it's a very wonderful drug. A lot of patients get a lot of benefit from this drug. I've seen it. The side effects when you compare to other drugs are very less. They can be a hydroxychloroquine induced maculopathy but that will usually happen after 4 to 5 years of taking this drug. So the side effects are very less when we compare to other drugs. Next slide. Okay. So this is regarding the diet. So what happens, how your diet is related to your immune system. This will show you, give you an idea. Okay. When you take a lot of fiber, will intestine go to a symbiosis. Okay. Then you will get a lot of short chain fatty acids. You face short chain fatty acids and PSA, PTGN, and so on. There are so many other chemical factors released. So all of them have a positive actions on your immune system. They protect your immune system in short. So, but when you take fermented foods, fiberless foods, your intestine will go to a dysbiosis. So just understand this. When there is a symbiosis in your gut, there's a protective action on your immune system. But when there is a dysbiosis, there is a negative action on your immune system. Even type 1 diabetes is also an autoimmune condition, you know. Next slide. Yeah. So what is a pro-inflammatory diet? If you ask me which kind of diet will increase inflammation, it is the Western diet. So mainly Western diet is mainly comprised of meat, you know, the pizza, the burger, the fermented food, processed food. So there is also an upsurge in autoimmune disease in the Western countries. That's why all these days you can see a lot of trend going on in US and other Western countries towards a plant-based diet, a vegan diet, eliminating meat, dairy from the diet. So it's high time that in our countries also we start educating people to go plant-based, you know, take more fiber-rich diet. Next slide. Okay. Other thing is psoriatic arthritis. This is also very common these days. It is very confusing, you know, for inexperienced person, inexperienced doctor. A lot of times it looks like, you know, rheumatoid arthritis. So some doctors manage it as rheumatoid arthritis, but that's not correct. The management is completely different when it comes to modern medicine aspect. But still, for you also, it will be very, you know, important to diagnose it's a rheumatoid arthritis or a psoriatic arthritis. So how would we know it is a psoriatic arthritis? Along with joint pains, which will be similar to RA, there will be psoriatic rashes. Where is the common sites you find psoriatic rashes? Will be your extensor surface of your elbow, scalp, behind the ear, shin bone. So you have to examine these areas when you see arthritis patient. It's very important because whenever you find a patient with joint pains and skin rash, any skin rash, you have to be very careful, you know, because that means there is an involvement of your immune system. When there is a skin rash along with joint pain, it's always something to do with your immune system. Why? Because both of them are very very responsive to your immune system. Anything goes haywire in your immune system, the skin and the joints will be the first ones to respond. Because there are so many receptors on your joints for your immune cells, they go and attach very easily to the receptors and they'll cause inflammation. And unlike RA, one difference in psoriatic RA will be the asymmetry. In RA, there will be symmetrical involvement, the same joints in both the hands or the same PIP joints in both the hands. But in psoriatic RA, the symmetry will be not there most of the time. And like RA, it will be affect small joints and hip joints, and there will be morning stiffness more than 30 minutes. And ESR, CRP, the inflammatory markers can be high or they can be normal also. Next slide. Yeah. So in like RA, you can see this erosions in psoriatic RA also. There you can see the deformities. Next slide. Okay. Another very important thing is SLE, so autoimmune disease. The full form is systemic lupus erythematosus. The joint manifestations will be similar to RA. the clinical features will be same like RA. The morning stiffness, the pattern of involvement of joints could be same like RA, but there will be some extra articular features. The main one is the malar rash, the butterfly rash. Whenever you see a patient with butterfly rash and other fatty joint pains, you have to be very careful. SLE is a very devastating disease. The mortality rate is high. When you compare to RA and other psoriasis, there's no such mortality rate. They might go for a deformation, reduced mobility and these things, but there's no mortality as such. But SLE, it has some mortality rate, so you have to be very careful. What are the extra-articular manufacture features you can see? The malar rash, lupus nephritis. Nephritis is inflammation of your nephrons, the kidney cells. Proteinuria. If you do the urine routine test, you'll find a positive protein. So positive protein is never normal. So it can have positive protein leak in urine means there is some damage happening in your kidney. Okay, low complement level. If you have read in your microbiology subject, you'll be taught about the complement system. The complement system is a very important aspect in immune system. So they mediate the bacterial or viral pathogenesis. They are responsible for bacterial and viral pathogenesis. The complement system will be dysregulated. The C3 complement 3, complement 4 will be on the lower side in SLE. So if you take the chest X-ray, you can find a small lining around the lungs. That's called pleural effusion. Because SLE is an immune system disorder, it affects multiple organs. There will be a lot of fatigue. Mouth ulcers. Mouth ulcers is a very important thing in SLE. So if a patient says mouth ulcers, fatigue, joint pains, malar rashes, any other skin rashes, so it most probably to do with immune system. So don't take it lightly. Don't take these patients lightly. You have to investigate them properly, diagnose them, and make sure they are on a proper treatment. Next. Yeah. So this is the malar rash on your right side. What you see. See, it can be sometimes confused with eczema. Eczema is, you can say, some kind of allergy. Allergy is another vast topic. I cannot talk on this right now. So this is just to make you aware what is the butterfly rash and what is not. In eczema, the lesion will be widespread and also there will be itching. But in butterfly rash, in malar rash, there won't be itching and it will be a limited area, as you can see in the image also. Next slide. Okay. There's another thing. It's called post-viral arthralgia or reactive arthritis. As I said, your joints are very prone to develop an immune system attack. So whenever your immune system is activated, say in a viral infection, bacterial infection, you can have joint pains and vague musculoskeletal pains also. So even COVID-19, if you see, one of the symptoms they say is body ache. Why? Because of the immune system. So the onset of pain will be followed by viral or bacterial infection. Sometimes it resolves without any treatment. Just analgesics and exercises, it will get resolved. But chikungunya may last for a few months. If patient says I had a fever from 7 months back, 6 months back, then I started getting these pains, it is not relieved. So most probably it could be a chikungunya. Other viral infections like Epstein-Barr, cytomegalovirus don't last for such a long time. It will get resolved, but chikungunya can stay for a longer time. Another thing is rheumatic heart disease. You'll see that in a youngish, that is less than 18 years, not so very common after 18 years. So we don't have any management on that, but just for information, you can search, in Google or somewhere. Okay, next slide. Okay. Ankylosing spondylitis, more common in males than females because it's a testosterone-driven disease. Okay, like as RA was, as we see in RA, it is an estrogen-driven disease, but Angst is a testosterone-driven disease. There will be low back pain which will be worse in the morning. There'll be a family history of back pain. Why is family history of a back pain is why is it important? Because of the gene. This disease is transferred through your genes. We have to test for HLA-B27 if you are suspecting ankylosing spondylitis. So the HLA-B27 is positive, there is no doubt. The diagnosis comes from that ankylosing spondylitis. So what other things will be there in ankylosing spondylitis? Will be extra-articular features like recurrent mouth ulcers, some nail changes, a lot of dandruff, and anterior uveitis. Anterior uveitis is quite dangerous because it can give you blindness. Next slide. There's another slide. Okay. Yeah. How to screen for ankylosing spondylitis? When a patient comes with low back pain, how would you say that this person might be suffering from ankylosing spondylitis? It can be another vague pain, vague musculoskeletal pain, pain because of posture. So it is important to differentiate from a vague pain and pain due to ankylosing spondylitis. The first thing you will do is order for a X-ray pelvis APA view. So this is very important. You can take a note of this also. X-ray pelvis APA view, anterior posterior view. So in that view, it will be more, the sacral joint will be visible more clearly. On the left hand side, if you see, there's a clear space between the sacrum and the iliac joint. Okay, this is a normal sacroiliac joint. On the other hand, if you see, there's a loss of joint space. That means there is inflammation, there is edema. The white thing, what you see, is edema. Whenever you see some whitish thing on X-ray, it means there is a edema, there is an inflammatory response. So this is a major screening test for sacroiliitis. Okay. Next slide. Go to the management part. Back. So Angstpond, the Surya Namaskara is a very good practice for them because it has so many bending postures, stretching. It's very important to maintain the flexibility in this disease because they can go for a stoop posture, hunching back very early in the disease. Especially young males, it can be very devastating for them. So it's very important they do Surya Namaskar on a regular basis and forward and backward bending postures. Also, a lot of us, we mainly focus on forward bending posture. But in Angstpond, you have to focus on a backward bending posture also. Why? Because the disease is taking you forward like this. It's hunching you. So what you have to do, you have to reverse it. You have to do more of backward bending postures. And stress management, relaxation techniques, meditation. As I said earlier, these all have a anti-inflammatory effect on us. And that also, seem like what I said in RA. And the drugs will be a slightly changed than RA in this. So here also methotrexate is given 10 mg starting up to 25 mg per week. And sulfasalazine 500 mg BD. This is a very important drug in Angstpond. If you find these patients not on these drugs, kindly, refer them to a better doctor and say them to go along with these medicines also. Because all these diseases, they can give you a deformity, If you say them don't take these medications, you'll be responsible for whatever they face in the future. So it's always to be on the safer side, go for an integrated approach. Don't deny any other systems of medicine. Take what is best from other systems of medicine. Integrate with what your practice is. Next slide. Next. Back. One slide back. Yeah. Other thing is seronegative spondyloarthropathy we call. So the features will be same as Angstpond, ankylosing spondylitis. But in here, the gene won't be positive. The HLA-B27 will be negative. So that's the only difference. And there will be no peripheral arthritis. As in, an ankylosing spondylitis, along with the spine, This actually is really like joint and spine. The hands, wrist, and they actually stand on foot, knee. It can involve multiple joints and spine. But seronegative spondyloarthropathy usually doesn't spread to other joints. There's one major difference, and no extra-articular features like dandruff, mouth ulcers, and ESR-CRP will be, it can be either raised or normal. It depends on the presence of sacralities or not. So the sole diagnostic hallmark in this is sacralities. There is sacralities, it's an inflammatory pain. If there is no sacralities, then that we'll see in the next slide. So what are other things that can present like SSA or angstrom? Is IBD. IBD is inflammatory bowel disease. In inflammatory bowel disease, you can have a joint pain as an extra manifestation. And psoriatic arthritis. Psoriasis, as we said, we talked about the small joint involvement in psoriatic arthritis, but psoriatic arthritis can involve hip also. How to diagnose IBD? Colonoscopy, stool culture. The clinical features will be diarrhea and constipation, alternating diarrhea, constipation, sometimes only diarrhea. Clinically, how do you do it? Because diarrhea and constipation can happen functionally also. We call it IBS, irritable bowel syndrome versus IBD. These are two different entities. IBS is more of a functional thing. There will be anxiety, depression corresponding to these bowel symptoms. But IBD is an inflammatory disease. There will be inflammation in your gut. So how do we do that? Go for a stool culture and stool for calprotectin. Calprotectin levels should be on a higher side if you want to diagnose IBD. And colonoscopy. Next slide. Sometimes a biopsy is needed. Fibromyalgia. So this is very common these days, especially in the kind of environment we are living in today. A lot of stress around, stress, it has some, you can see the corresponding points here. There will be a tender trapezius point. It will be there in your hand muscles, knee muscles. So it will mimic the other kind of arthritis like RA, OA. It can mimic those kind of diseases. But when you see clinically, when you take the X-ray, it will be normal. They take a MRI, it will be normal. ESR, the inflammatory markers, ESR, CLP will be on the normal side. And all these rheumatoid factor, anti-nuclear antibody, anti-CCP, HLA-B27, all these things will be negative. But still the patient will complain of severe widespread pain. And if you also, when you take the case history, if you ask them about their sleep and their stress history, it will be, they'll complain of stress disturbance or some very unhealthy event in their life following which they have sleep disturbance, body aches and all. So it's a comorbid condition. Anxiety and depression is a comorbid condition in fibromyalgia. Next slide. The management, okay. Main thing is to manage the stress. I'm not written acupuncture in this. Okay. Acupuncture is a very effective treatment modality in fibromyalgia. Sometimes it alleviates, it completely takes fibromyalgia pain of a person without any other drugs or other treatment modality. So stretching asana, relaxation techniques will help. Meditation will help. If needed, you can go for a psychotherapy, counseling, CBT and biofeedback mechanisms. When it comes to the drug, we can prescribe this drug called prevalent 75 mg once daily in the night before going to bed. So when patients don't improve much with your acupuncture, yoga, and other naturopathy modalities, you can prescribe this drug. Sometimes it will be a relaxing side. You give them treatment, they will improve, the pain will go up, but it can have a relapse. The patient may come with the pain again. So this drug can prevent the relapse sometimes. But most importantly, it is stress management and stretching asana, as I said. and also tryptophan-rich diet. Why tryptophan-rich diet? Because tryptophan is a precursor for serotonin. Serotonin is a happy hormone. So lack of serotonin, you will not be in a happy mood. Even if you want to be happy, if your brains are not producing so much of serotonin, you can't be happy. So tryptophan should be included in your diet. Tryptophan is amino acid, and it comes from protein source. Okay. Next slide. Okay, this is the last one. Okay, fine. There are some questions which we'll answer. Best treatment for TMD. Okay. So TMD very commonly affected in RA, rheumatoid arthritis. You have to manage RA first. If it is RA, just make sure that they're on the right track of treatment when it comes to the modern medicine approach. They should be on a Polytrex, most common brand of methotrexate, and HCQS, and along with some other analgesics or medications. And acupuncture in stomach 7 point. Okay, it comes here. You can prick them, or you can do a dry needling technique also. So dry needling technique in this point is found very effective in temporomandibular joint. I've seen those patients. It will be locked for years, the temporomandibular joint. But when you do the needling technique here, the joint is released immediately. So, but very importantly, it's important to manage the arthritis along with it. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Any questions coming, Bhavesh?
We'll wait for 1 minute, 1 or 2 minutes. If any other questions is coming. Ritu Shevani raise her hand, so she can ask by unmuting. Ritu Shevani, are you there?
Okay. Sciatica and chronic fatigue syndrome management. Okay. Difference between fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue. Sciatica. Okay, I'll take this question. Sciatica. Okay, sciatica, you know, it is when the lumbar spine, the disc gets bulged, it moves forward from its anatomic position and compresses the neural foramina and presses the sciatic nerve. So the pinching of the nerve will give sciatica. So why should the disc prolapse in the first place? Two things. One is inflammation and the posture. If it's inflammation, manage the inflammation first. Okay, the first and foremost thing will be managing the inflammation. And next is if it's a posture change. Okay, so how do we, okay, there is another important thing. How do we know it is an inflammatory or non-inflammatory pain? One thing is you do a pelvis X-ray. In every sciatica patient, you do a pelvis X-ray. Make sure there is sacroiliitis is there or not. If there is no sacroiliitis, most probably it is a postural problem. You manage the posture. If it's a postural issue, you tell them do more of backward bending and plus forward bending and the lumbar stretch. And acupuncture can be a very good tool in managing sciatic pain. It will give mainly what we can say a symptomatic management. Acupuncture will be a symptomatic management in this case. But when the posture is very, the back muscles are very strained, very much strained, acupuncture can do sometimes, the strain releasing action, muscle strain releasing action. So that can help. As I said, the lumbar stretch and forward and backward bending poses will help. Next is fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome. Okay. Fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome. In fibromyalgia, you can see very tender points. One is trapezius on the hamstring muscles. So if you can go, I don't have the image right now, you can Google. There are some at least 18 tender points for fibromyalgia. The pain is major complaint in fibromyalgia. In chronic fatigue syndrome, it will be vague musculoskeletal pain, not those classical tender points. Patients will complain of sleep disturbance, musculoskeletal pain, plus anxiety, depression. In fibromyalgia, sometimes they may not be anxiety, depression. The anxiety, depression might be secondary to the pain in fibromyalgia. In chronic fatigue syndrome, the anxiety and depression will be the primary cause for the fatigue. What is the best time for sun exposure? Okay. So there's a lot of debate on this. It's a very controversial topic. So when you're exposed to the sun after 9 a.m. or so, they say the UV rays will be very strong. It can, also give you cancer and stuff. So there's a lot of debate on this topic. But I personally believe 8 to 9, 7 to 9 in the morning should be the best time for sun exposure. I've seen a patient with bilateral OA who was prescribed with protein powder. That patient does not experience it. So is it recommended? No, we have to know why the protein powder was prescribed in the first place. What is the logic behind giving the protein powder? Sometimes some people want to lose their weight, they take protein powder. In that case, okay, you can take. Take protein. If you want to reduce weight, it's effective too. Sometimes you take calories from a protein source than a carbohydrate source. If that is the logic behind that, then it's okay. Otherwise, for pain, I don't think it affects in any way the protein intake. Why forward bending are contraindicated in sciatica? Okay, the forward bending is should be contraindicated in acute sciatica, not chronic sciatica. In acute sciatica, there can be inflammation, and if you advise a forward bending, the inflammation might reduce. You're adding more trouble to it. Okay, so it's a nice question. You avoid the forward bending in acute sciatica.
There's one more question from Jahanvi. Does moxibustion therapy helps in the treatment of musculoskeletal dysfunction?
Hello.
Yeah, Jahanvi question is there in the chat box. Does moxibustion therapy help in the treatment of musculoskeletal dysfunction?
Okay, moxibustion therapy helps in treatment of musculoskeletal disease. Okay. Yeah, it can help definitely if it's muscle pain, muscle strain, or secondary muscular spasm. In inflammatory diseases like RA and Angstrom, there will be secondary muscular spasm. Sometimes the muscular spasm can be primary. Muscle spasm comes first before anything, but there is a secondary. It can be secondary to arthritis. In that case, it can help. And when I was in the Shanghai University, when I visited the hospital and I was there for some time, I think they used to give for every patient who comes, they used to put a moxibustion thing on the navel or on the umbilicus. So they said all the energy should come, should be based in the navel. So the person will become whole, he'll become less tense, less anxious, become more healthy. So this was a common practice for them. So I think we have to look in that terms. So the traditional Chinese practices is another vast topic. We'll discuss it some other time. Any other question? What about chromotherapy in these conditions? No, honestly speaking, I'm not sure that chromotherapy. I've not done any revision also. I'll find someone better who can answer this. I'm so sorry. Sudden unilateral knee pain, patient unable to walk properly. No injury, what should be taken in diagnosis? Okay. It can be osteoarthritis flare. Osteoarthritis sometimes it's gradual in onset, but sometimes it can happen all of a sudden. So it can be osteoarthritis flare. And as I said, it can be myositis. Now, when the knee bulk, sorry, the hamstrings or the calf muscle bulk goes down, they cannot walk properly, or sometimes it can give you a knee pain. So just make sure that they don't have a muscle injury. They might not be a knee joint injury, but they can be the surrounding structures can be affected. And what is the major cause of the muscle injury? I said before, it can be drug induced. These patients with obesity, high cholesterol levels, they're commonly prescribed with statins, atorvastatin, and so many other brands. Statin is a major inducer of myositis. So how to see if there is myositis or not? You order for a CPK, serum creatine phosphokinase level. So if it's on the higher side, it says there is a muscle injury. Other thing is you do a knee X-ray, and if you see there's a loss of joint space and all, it should be a osteoarthritis, and you have to screen for other arthritis also like RA or psoriatic arthritis, the HLA-B27 induced arthritis. Any other question? How to manage musculoskeletal pain of a bedridden patient who is supposed to be in bed for many months? Can you be more specific in this? Abin Sami. Okay. Okay. So bedridden patient, so many reasons to be bedridden. The patient is bedridden because of arthritis or a musculoskeletal disorder. Then you have to manage, accordingly, because they may not be able to do yoga asana practices, but you can still give them acupuncture and medicine care. Okay, he is a cancer patient. Okay, cancer patient pain is a very common symptom. Sometimes it can be because of the cancer itself, or sometimes a drug-induced pain. Both the things. There are a lot of studies. If you go to Google Scholar or PubMed, acupuncture is a very effective mode of therapy in this because they're not so easily available to other treatments. They cannot do yoga asana, some physiotherapy practices also they will not be able to do. So in these patients, the ultrasound massage or TENS, IFT, acupuncture, these models can help. And also give them relaxation techniques, shavasana. What exercise you advise in the osteoarthritis? What precautions should be taken care while practicing? What I've seen most of the rheumatologists or ortho doctors, what they say is don't sit on the ground. They tell these OA patients to completely avoid sitting on the ground because it can strain your knee joints more when you sit on the floor and you want to get up. You're putting all the pressure on your knee joint. So they say don't sit on the knee. So you can, to prevent the further damage, you can also advise them this. They can do the yogasana and these things on sitting on a bed or elevated place. And what practices? What did you ask? What exercise? Okay, there are a lot of knee joint strengthening exercises. If you go to some physiotherapy manuals on their website, it is very easy. It can be practiced very easily. Like keeping a pillow under your knee and pressing it, and taking a wall support, standing on your knee, and standing on the floor. Sorry, standing on your toes and standing on the heels completely. So, there's so many others. You can go in a website or What type of diet therapy is good for IVDP? Yeah, as I said, IVDP can be secondary to inflammation or a posture change. If it's inflammatory disease, then anti-inflammatory diet. Tell them include a lot of fiber in the diet. Reduce the intake of processed food, meat, dairy. Dairy is a pro-inflammatory. A lot of us don't agree. A lot of us don't know. Milk and milk products is a pro-inflammatory food. Other things we can add omega-3 fatty acid rich diet, walnuts and a lot of dry fruits. Fish oil, they say it has good omega-3. And also the fiber-rich diet itself can give a lot of omega-3. What is better, a cold compress or a reversible compress in knee osteoarthritis? I think it should be the reversible compress in knee osteoarthritis. As I said, osteoarthritis is not an inflammatory disease as such. The itis which is added to in osteoarthritis is misnomer sometimes. There is no real inflammation. If it's inflammatory disease, the cold compress helps. In knee osteoarthritis, there is no real inflammation as such. It's a degenerative disease. So reversible compress might help more than a cold compress. Is it good to perform forward bending asana and ankylosing spondylitis? Yeah, absolutely. It is good. In ankylosing spondylitis, yeah, definitely it will help, but you also focus on the backward bending also. But if it's an acute angst, there is a disc prolapse, then you should not go for a forward bending. Okay. I've answered most of the questions. The diet in degenerative disorder other than calcium and vitamin D supplements. Okay. There's one thing I have to tell you in degenerative disorder. So if you see any patient who comes with recurrent allergies, bronchial asthma, and bone pain, it could be mainly a degenerative disorder because these allergies, they release a lot of histamine. So histamine is a osteoporotic degenerative chemical mediator. So if they're I've seen this very commonly, degenerative disorder, they have a background of allergy. So try to manage their allergy also. Okay. So other thing, diet in degenerative disorder. Yeah, omega-3 fatty acids are good. Anti-inflammatory diet is good. Degenerative disorders, later they can give you inflammatory response. So anti-inflammatory diet. That's all. Okay.
We will conclude the session.
Sorry?
We'll conclude the session, sir.
Yeah, we'll conclude it. If
Thank you so much.
If there are any doubts, they can contact me personally on Facebook, WhatsApp, anything. Okay.
Thank you so much, sir, to come on this platform with all of us to share with your different perspective in the management part.
Thank you.
We'll be looking forward to have some sessions in different topics in some days.
Yeah. Sure.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, sir, to come on this platform. Thank you.
Thank you.